GM. Quick one now. Trade of the day. So I don't know how much the Jolts job opening is going to move the market. However, what's interesting about it is there is more of a focus now on jobs data than ever. And obviously non-farm payroll, which is this Friday, is the big one. That's the most important piece of employment data that will be coming out this week. But the job openings, especially if there is a big miss on either side, which could be, a big miss to the upside or the downside, you might see a bit of a movement here. And I'll take a look at some of the ones that have missed in particular. 1st of May, there was quite a big miss to the downside. So the expectation of job openings was 8.68. The actual was 8.49. And that's at 2 p.m. UTC. So we can go back and take a look and see how much has the market weighed upon this in recent times. And so 1st of May, we saw it at what time? It was at 2 p.m. There we have it there. So the market was already in a strong downtrend. 1st of May at 2 p.m. Didn't really do much for the market. Obviously, it was close to the bottom. But what started moving us was then on Friday, the NFP. So this happens every month, right? Every month you get the jobs opening first, and then you have the NFP later on in the week. So both of those pieces of data, the Jolts was actually almost a preview, right? It was a pretty big miss to the downside. And then we ended up getting the weak non-farm payroll and unemployment data on Friday. So at least last month, the Jolts give you a sort of a look ahead of what was going to happen with NFP. Of course, it's not going to be like that every single month. But let's look at the next one that was a big miss, which would be January 30th. So this is where the jobs data came in much higher than expected. I'll go and look at January 30th. And I don't suspect that in January this would have mattered because, first of all, Bitcoin had other things going on. And secondly, there wasn't so much of a focus on jobs. The focus on jobs is much more now. But January 30th at 2 p.m. was here. So within that consolidation. And then later on that week, Thursday, Friday, we would have got the non-farm. And again, didn't do much. That was all just Bitcoin within consolidation. Bitcoin right now is still within consolidation. And I would look at this and say probably you don't see much of a move off the Jolts today unless there's a big number. And especially if it's a downside miss. So the expectation is 8.37. If you see like 8.3, 8.2, 8.1, probably you're going to see a spike up in a rally. But for actually trading this, I think Bitcoin, as I mentioned on daily levels, it moved up early in the week, took out some stops, has consolidated below there, looks set to drop back to at least this inefficiency here. But typically, if you take one side, you can go down and take the other. And so I'm expecting something a bit like this for Bitcoin, where it goes back into this area, dips down, takes out some stops on the downside, reclaims, and then goes back into consolidation. And probably a bigger move is going to come, but not until the end of the week. It might actually be Friday again. Right? It might be at the non-farm payroll on Friday once more, where we see an actual directional move. That seems to be the way it's setting up. There has to be some kind of catalyst to push us and take us out of this sort of chop that we're in. And this just looks very much like a typical move early in the week, pushes up, right? And we're going to go back down. I'd be fairly confident that we're going to go back down. It's not something that I would short. There's no real trade here to short it because it might not happen today. It might take days and days and days, but I expect that after touching off those highs, it goes at least back to this inefficiency, but probably slightly below it and take some of those lows. Maybe as low as 66 to grab stops, but I don't think so. I think it'll probably just fall back into this area here. And if you do see that, right, so for me, if I see that downside move that comes, it climbs back into the range. I think looking at breaking back above 69 is where you're looking at longs. So if it dips below 68 into the 67s, then gets back above 69, I think that's where your all systems go on some longs towards the highs. So that's how I would approach it. I don't know if it's going to be today, as I said, probably not. Maybe it's going to be more on Friday when we get the big employment data, the NFP and the unemployment rate. And until then, we might just stay in a choppy consolidation. That's it. GM.